there, it is Tuesday. I'm back down at the shed. I didn't post a video from last week, so I am going to post that first. It ended in a pretty disastrous point and I didn't really get much accomplished. So I figured that I would just come down here, see if I can fix the problems I encountered last week. And if I can, then hopefully everything will be really good. But I did want to point out, if you can look back here, you can see that there's a couple of pop bumpers that are blinking. They shouldn't be blinking like that. That's another one of the problems I need to track down. And this one is out. Now this one is out because Mike disconnected it, and that's why all the rest of the lights are out also. So one of the things I need to do today is get under here and reconnect this light back up, which will continue the signal along all the rest of the string so I can get back to the back box and fix that. But before I do that, Mike ordered some 1/2-inch plastic rod, and it came in along with a tailstock drill chuck so that we can drill holes in that plastic if we want to. So before I start on any of this, I want to play around with the lathe for a little bit, because we just haven't had a chance to play with it yet, and I know nothing about lathes. This is the first one I've ever touched. So mistakes will happen. Oh, and we don't have any tools yet, so I'm going to be putzing around with I don't know what, saws or something to just cut off chunks or whatever. But I'm gonna go and play around with that. I'll film it so you can watch me make a fool of myself. I plan to spend about 15 or 20 minutes on that, and then I'll get back over here. But while all of that is going on, I have one more thing that's going on. If you've watched my videos for a while, like 3 years, you'll know that a long time ago we built a datascope out of an Arduino in order to capture some data off of the microprocessor to figure out how the signals going to the lights work. Well, I have upgraded that in the last couple of weeks while I was at home. And right over here, I have my latest iteration of the probe. Now, this is just a USB cable that plugs into my PC. Inside here is an Arduino STM32 microprocessor. And then coming out of here is a ground wire and 10 clips that I can clip onto signal wires so I can look at signals. One of the things we want to do, and I don't remember if I talked about this last week or not, but we were thinking about in our next iteration of these lamps, making them serial, I2C, as opposed to parallel like they are now. So there would just be 4 wires that would run around to all 5 lights, providing power, ground, and signal, and we would be done. And it would make that back glass wiring area so much cleaner. So the board that I use to pick up the signals for the lights plugs into the same jack that the display signals are on. So I could pick those up also. Now it would require a redesign of the board back there to capture the data that's being sent to the displays, and then an ability to serialize it, send it out to the displays. This is pretty much a big pipe dream of things that could be accomplished, but I've been working on it in my spare time. One of the first things required is to figure out what kind of data rates we're looking at for the signals, and hence the new Datascope probe. This STM32 can sample a lot quicker, and it can sample a lot more samples. So minimum samples is on the software I got is 6,000 samples, and it samples those every 1.25 milliseconds, microseconds, 1.25 microseconds, roughly 1.25, 1.27, somewhere in that range, but 4 samples every 5 microseconds on average, which is plenty fast to sample the data rates coming off of Motorola 68000 microprocessor, which is what's running that thing back there. So so I can get those samples. I can also compress that in up to 32 or 64, 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 64. So I can compress 64 samples into one word if it's the same. So if it has a little counter in there, so if the data is the same, sample after sample after sample, instead of just sending the same thing over and over and over again, I count up a little count bit and say I can get 10 samples in a row and then it changes. So I would have the data and a count that says 10 of those, and then I would sample 2 of those, and then whatever. So if the data rate is slower, it packs it tighter, and I don't use as much space. So I can get a lot more samples in my data flow. Anyway, I'll show you guys all that once I get it tested out and working. But for right now, we're going to move the lights and the cameras over to the, what's that tool called? The lathe, and play around with those plastic rods a little bit. Here is the plastic rod that Mike just got. This is a 1/2-inch rod. He got a couple pieces of black that we're thinking about just cutting off and drilling a hole in and making that the spacer for the 1/4-inch clear plastic rod. But we also bought some 1/2-inch plastic rod that we're going to try to just make some big light pipes out of to see how those work. Because if those work, it's a lot easier just to chop these off and shape them than it is to chop these off, drill them, chop off little ones, shape them, stick the two together. Anyway, this should be easier. But it all depends on what it's going to look like and stuff like that. So right now, because I just have a little bit of stick out area here and I don't have anything to support this, I'm going to cut off about 1'18" of this clear pipe, clear rod, and then I'm going to mount it in here, and then I'm going to start working on the other side. So I'm not going to film that cutting because I don't really have any good way of doing that. I'm just going to use a little saw to cut it off. So I'll be right back. Okay, I've measured the back box that I'm going to cut a piece of plastic to go in the back box right now. So that's a 3/4 inch thick slab of wood. So first thing I'm going to do, tighten this down in here. I don't think it's critical. I don't want to tighten it too tight. I don't have any soft jaws or anything, so that's going to grab on there as much as it's going to grab on there. And I've got a box of files back here, and I'm going to just try some different files because, like I said, I don't have any tooling yet. Here's one that's a little raspy. Let me try that first. So I want this to probably go forward. And I guess I got to turn it on first. Okay. Forward. Oh, don't close that. Okay, well that rounded off pretty well. It took a little few minutes, but that was real time that you were watching there. So now I'll just mark 3/4 of an inch plus maybe another 1/10 of an inch or something. So I'll go to point eight inches plus the little round over, which means I'm going to have to actually move that forward a little bit. Okay. Let me move that back a little bit. This is actually pretty hard to hold. This little saw's got a lot of grip to it. I wished I had a parting tool. Yeah. I probably don't have enough strength to snap that. Let me see if I can find something to grab onto that so I can snap it. I'll be right back. Okay, let's see if that's scored enough to snap. Yes, it did. Okay, so there is a light pipe. Now, if I had a tool that I could put in here, I could face that off and get a nice clean end to that, but I don't have that right now. So I'm just going to chuck it up in here and hit it with a file. A lot of work for one light bulb. Okay, that's pretty good actually. So can you see that? It's kind of ground off at the bottom. A little frosty. Clear is probably better. Frosted on the end, but pretty well rounded over. So let me take it over to the table and slide it in one of the holes. I never did check to see if this fit, so we'll have to see that next. Okay, I think this is the first LED in the string. Now, none of these lights work until I fix the stuff down below, but let's see if this fits in there. Well, it's a little tight. Oh, wait a minute. Okay. I don't think that's going quite all the way back. Let me get the little hammer and see if I can tap it just a little bit. I don't want to put too much on it. I don't want to break the light behind it if it is all the way back. Yeah, I don't trust that. Can I get that out of there? Let me try a different one just to... I think when we do this again, before we put the lights in, we'll go ahead and ream these holes out a little bit. Okay, there you go. Okay, I think that's about as far as that thing ought to sit in there. So after we get the lights hooked back up, we'll see how much light this sends out. Well, hello there. It is Monday again, and I am back down at the shed, continuing on with wiring the lights on the back box. So I just wanted to show off my lovely coronavirus at-home haircut. I think my wife did a wonderful job. I mean, I've had worse haircuts at a haircuttery, so I am extremely happy with the wonderful job that she did. So kudos to Linda. Anyway, back to business. This is about all I have planned to work on today, and it's probably going to take the full 3 hours. I plan to be down here to wire this little bit of back box and maybe get it set up and tested. So there's not going to be a lot of content in this video, but I'll probably publish it anyway. I am going to put you in time lapse and let you watch what I'm doing while I'm doing it, just so I have some content to publish. And anyway, when I get done with that, I might show you a few other things around the shop. But other than that, this is what's on the plate for today. So stand by. Okay, I'm doing a little bit of handheld here just to remind you guys how these lights are configured. Because when I designed these boards, I put the pads too close together. I can't have the signal lines, the top and bottom pads there, have connectors on them. They're too close together, and they wouldn't allow me to put on the little plastic cover that snaps the wire down. So because of that, I am having to hand solder the input and output connectors. So I'm going to start that first throughout this whole back box with a white wire, and I'll just start at the input, which is focus right over there. That one right there is the first one. And I will start with this, and then I'll wind my way through these lights until I get done. And then once I get done with that, I will snap the power and ground wires down. And when I'm done with that, the wiring will be done. So I have you up on a tripod. It's probably not the best view in the world, but it should be good enough. So I'm going to start by getting myself a pair of dikes. Just a little bit off screen here, I have my soldering iron set up on a vise just so that I can wet the ends of this wire before I solder them down. So it's acting as my soldering stand because I forgot to bring my soldering stand with me. Okay, I moved you guys to the other side of the table because I need to stand where you guys were standing, but I'll continue on. So I've been down here for about 45 minutes already, so it looks like it's going to take about an hour and a half just to put the signal wire on, but hopefully I can get the power and ground wires on a lot quicker than that. Okay, I've got you handheld for just a second because I want to show you something. I am about to do an experiment. As you can see, the wires have come up to this light bulb right here, and they're about to come down to these two and then follow on across to here and then to those two and to that one. Now, these two lights are the same indicator. It's a like end of game or something like that. But in the original game, these two bulbs were just in parallel, and when the computer turned it on, both lights came on. The same thing is true right here. These two go into the same opening down below, and they are just one indicator. So I've never tried this before, but I believe that I can wire these in parallel also. Come on, focus guy. So an input wire will come to here, and I will parallel that input wire off and bring it to here, and then I'll just take an output from here and keep on going. This output will just be ignored. So both of these lights will think they're the same light bulb, and they should both come on or go off at the same time. Like I said, this is an experiment. The reason I'm doing this here is because I'm designing a single board layout that has two bulbs on it, and I want to know whether or not I can just address them as one bulb or if I have to address them as two. So this is a convenient place to allow me to do that experiment. And of course, if it doesn't work, all I have to do is disconnect this input, solder it onto there, and then I'll have two bulbs that are each individually addressable. So if you're wondering what weirdness I'm doing with the wires over here, that's what I'm trying to accomplish. Okay, it's been probably about an hour and 40 minutes or so since I got here to the shop, and I am done with all of the soldering part of this job. So now I'm going to start running the power wires. The power wires are actually going to extend off on both ends. You see I left a long piece of wire here for the signal on that end. I'll leave power lines just as long on that end to come around here. And then I'm going to run the power lines off the end here so we can bring power in from both ends of this string. So that's the plan. I'm going to put you guys back in hyperlapse, and I'm going to just start knocking these things down. Hopefully I can get this done today and power it back up. I've got the wiring all done. The last red wire was a little short, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. All I have to do now is reattach these and then hang this back up on the board, and I can connect up the power and see how it lights up. But I'm almost out of time already, so I'm not sure how far I'm going to get along with this, but I will try to get it lit up. Hold on just a second, guys. I am not going to film what I'm doing just because I'm in a hurry. I just hooked the thing up, powered it up. I seem to be missing some lights. Of course, I haven't powered on the machine yet. So it might change once I do that. Well, I am having some interesting little blips going on. So I did make a mistake that might be accounting for some of this. And that is that this black wire, I didn't notice it until I got to the very end, but that black wire is a solid core wire, not a stranded wire. So I may have messed up and got something wrong, but it looks like more than I want to attack today in problems. So it looks like all of the lights are having a little bit of issues. Let me just reseat my board up there and see if that makes a difference. Okay, I plugged everything back in, reconnected the power wires just to see if that made a difference, and it doesn't. I'm still getting a lot of glitchiness stuff going on here. I'm going to disconnect the back box. I'm getting a little glitching down here on the play field too. You can just see it once in a while. I'm going to disconnect that and see if that stops the glitchiness when I disconnect it. Okay, this board right here is where Mike disconnected the pop bumper lights from. So I need to hook those back up. So I'll get my little punch down tool and go ahead and punch those back in place where they go. And then we should be ready to turn it back on and see what the lights look like. Okay, I think that's all hooked up good. Let me push you guys back a little bit, power it back up, and see if all the lights come on. Okay, it looks like all the lights are lit up, but they're having signal problems. I think that's a problem on my board in the back glass here. So let me set this down, and I'm going to attack that first and see if I can figure out what's going on there and get that working right before I go on with working on the lights on the back glass. But as you can see, we do have lights that appear to be working fairly well. Interestingly, while I had that up, they were all red, which speaks to a loose connection or something. So let me see, what can you guys see from here? Let me put you down a little bit. And by the way, Mike did fix the pop bumpers. They may still need to be adjusted a little bit, but he fixed them so that they fire. Yeah, so that's all working. He said he did notice that the second and third drop target is not registering. It did that time. That one didn't register well. And that one registers. Of course, that registers. So, all in all, the table is starting to work the way it's supposed to work. Still a little tuning to do, but we will get there. But let me get back to mucking with the lights. I checked all the connectors back here. Everything looks sound. I don't see any loose or anything wrong, so I'm not sure what might be causing our little glitchy problem. I'm going to go ahead and power it back on. Well, that actually came up a little bit better. It's still got a flicker once in a while. I could always have a code problem though too. You can't rule that out. But like every once in a while I get a spurious flash and I'm not exactly sure what's causing that. Now right now the whole back box is totally disconnected from this. Are you guys still watching? Yes, you are. Okay. Well, I've discovered something. I'm going to have to trace it back. But notice how the lights are all just going random crazy now. If I pull on this cable, it stops, or almost stops. It becomes stable, but if I move it again, it gets all jiggity-wiggity. Good. Jiggity-wiggity. So that tells me that there's something going on, and I think it's probably up in the back box, but I don't know that for a fact. Now the pinball machine is turned off and only the lights are on. So there are no signals being sent to these lights anymore. They are holding the pattern that they have, which this flipping tells me that it's, what is it telling me? Mine might not. Let me correct that. There is still signal coming on because the microprocessor up here is still powered on. It's not getting any new commands from the MPU, so it keeps sending out the last thing that it was told to send out. But with this jiggling, making the lights change, it obviously okay, right now I'm holding the cable in the back against the box so it can't move, and the jiggling, the stuff goes away. So let me put this, I don't know if that last bit recorded, so I'm going to say it again. I cable tied the signal lines that are coming from this processor in here. So I'm going to disconnect those so I can isolate the LED lights from the rest of this cable, just to see if I can figure out what's going on. So I am not positive, but I think my problem might be in this connector right here. Now, when I put that connector in, I do not have a crimping tool to crimp the pins on there, and they might just be a little messed up, although I don't know, it actually seems like it's more sensitive down below than it is up here. It's so hard to tell, but I think I'm going to start by eliminating that connector. I'm going to take it off completely, and I am going to solder these wires right in there. I have a connector right there anyway, so I don't really need two connectors, one right after the other. So give me a couple of minutes. I'm going to pull that board out, heat up my soldering iron, pull out the old connector, and solder the wires directly onto the board and see if that solves my problem. My camera is sucking out more power than the charger can put into it. So I've only got like 8% in my phone right now, so I only have short bursts that I can film. I removed that connector, and I'm about to plug this back in to see if that made any difference. So right now the lights look good. Let's start jiggling on the... Nope, that did not fix it. Okay, so that's not the problem. I'm going to stop recording, and I'm just going to keep jiggling wires and moving around until I can hopefully can find where this issue's at, and then I'll bring you guys back and show it to you. So hopefully my phone can get charged up a little bit. Okay, I got the machine turned off right now. I haven't found anything that I would consider loose, but I did notice that if I just grab my hand around the cables and hold it like this, I start getting errors, and when I take my hand away, it stops. I think what might be happening is that this wire that I have the signal coming from here down to the playfield may be too long. There is a limit to the length of an I2C line, or this isn't an I2C line, but the signal line that runs to these lights has a limited length. Now normally it's not a problem because it gets regenerated at every LED, but right now there's a meter, 4 feet maybe, I don't know, of wire before it gets to the first LED from up here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take this signal wire and I'm just going to shorten it by about 18 inches to 2 feet. I need to leave enough to pull the thing out, so probably I'll take a foot out of here, and I'll shorten it a foot, and I'll see if that makes a difference. Okay, I've shortened that wire by a foot, so let's move it around and jiggle it around a little bit. And that looks like it might have taken care of the problem. Obviously, dressing these wires up and putting them in a nice neat bundle and keeping them away from other signals will probably help that. But I think for now, I'm going to call this looks like it's working good. By the way, we've talked about this in previous episodes. If this continues to be a problem, what I can do is, instead of running this long line of wires down there, I can actually put 5 or 6 lights in a light string off of here, down here, maybe use it for backbox lighting or something, and that would regenerate the signal and get it down here so I could use a shorter wire down below the cabinet. So that's an option if it looks like this is going to continue to be a problem. But it looks right now like it's running really nice and clean, so I think that might have solved the problem. So the next thing I'm going to do is rehook up this backbox lighting and see if I can figure out where the problem is on there and see if I can fix that. Okay, first things first, I just hooked that up, and with the signal being stabilized, that makes this look a whole lot better. But the first thing I wanted to point out was this right here. There's the light that I turned on the lathe earlier today as compared to all of the other lights. And while looking at it straight on like this, it looks about the same. Let me take you just a few degrees off to the side here, and you'll see, well, it doesn't show up as nicely on here as it does to my eyeballs. Let me go around to the other side. And I still have the charger cord hooked up. So, you know, as soon as you get off to the side, you can see that the other ones are not radiating at this angle, but that one is. I'm tempted to get the glass and put it in here. As a matter of fact, I think I will. I'm going to go get the glass and put it in just to see what that looks like. Okay, I'm not sure you can easily see the difference. In my eyes here, there's quite a bit of difference, but compare the light behind this ball with the light behind this ball. Now this is the one that's got the adapter on it, and these don't. And you can see how there's this sharp ring of light that just looks all wrong, where this one has a bright spot in the middle, and we might be able to tweak that out by adjusting the curvature of that lens a little bit. But it definitely softens the glow on that bulb and spreads that light out and looks much, much better. So I consider that a real win. And the lights are still looking really, really great. So I feel like I've accomplished something. Now I still need to fix the lights on the back box. I'm going to need to replace that black wire that I talked about earlier. That is a solid core wire. And I need to figure out why the lights stop right here. This light's on and then all the rest of these are off. So there's a break in the string right here. I don't know if that's a break in that solid core wire or something else. But I'm not, let me see what time it is. I'll decide whether or not I have time to continue working on that or not today. Okay, just to hopefully try to show you the difference the bulb is making, I moved the bulb from here to here, and now you can see that there's this really bright spot here. I also turned down the intensity on the filming so that you could see more accurately kind of what my eyes are seeing here. But you can see that this light fills out the whole ball, where this one puts a very bright spot right on the end. So I definitely turn the lights on, and it actually probably shows up even more eye accurate with the lights on. So again, you can see this bright circle where the light is just shining from the back, and then you can see this one that's spread out. So you know, hopefully that gets the point across. So I've got about a half an hour left. I'm gonna go ahead and try and figure out. Okay, really quickly, let me explain what I just did as a test. The power and ground wires come in on this end, they daisy chain on through, and they leave on the output end. So this light is working, and all the lights before it are working. This light isn't working, and all the lights after it isn't working. So there's a possibility that the power or ground wire could be broken, here or over here or somewhere in between, stopping power. So I went and hooked the power and ground wire up that leaves here, and those lights still don't work. That tells me it is not a power or ground wire problem. So it is either a signal wire leaving here that's bad, or entering there that's bad, or the LED itself is just totally bad, which is killing the signal. That's where I'm going to focus my looking now. I think I'm at the end of my work day, but I just noticed something interesting. I tried to bypass, well, I did bypass the signal on that LED just to see if it was bad or not. And while I was disconnecting the wires, that power wire broke. But an interesting thing happened. I'll take you around to the other side over here. So this was the light that was on. This light was off. So now remember, I've got power coming from the other side, so all the light bulbs have power even though that power wire is broken. But this light is now on, but none of the rest of them still are. I have a feeling that I've got a programming problem where I have only lit up that many LEDs and I haven't turned the rest of those on yet. I suspect that's the problem, so I'm going to stop here because there's no sense in me continuing on right now. It's right near the end of my workday. It's going to take a while. I don't have the facilities here to check the programming, yada, yada, yada. Anyway, so this is going to wrap it up for today. I consider today a win. The lights are nice and stable. Everything is blinking the way it's supposed to be. Our displays are working. Our little bulb is working. Yeah, this was so much better than last week. So anyway, you guys enjoy yourself. We'll see you next week.